African American judges in the federal judiciary. A series of fact sheets on the lack of diversity on the bench by Danielle Root, R-O-O-T, October 17, 2019. Federal judges wield immense power each day. They make decisions that affect people's livelihoods, well-being, and fundamental rights. However, a recent report from the Center for American Progress demonstrates that this power is largely held by individuals who do not reflect the diversity of American society. Overall, 80% of all sitting federal judges in the nation are white, compared with a U.S. population that is only 60% white. In addition, 73% of all sitting judges are male, while men make up slightly less than half of the population. Strikingly, there are only 2 sitting American Indian judges and no Muslim judges on the federal courts. African American judges are also underrepresented on the bench. The report uncovered several startling findings. Federal judiciary. African Americans comprise just 9.9% of sitting judges and roughly 13% of active judges on the federal bench. To put this in perspective, blacks or African Americans make up approximately 12.5% of the U.S. population. African American women. There are only 46 African American women sitting on the federal court, comprising just 3.4% of all sitting federal judges. Among active federal judges, only 4.9% are African American women. Federal Courts of Appeals. There are only 22 African American judges sitting on U.S. Court of Appeals, comprising just 7.6% of all sitting U.S. Circuit judges. Among active federal judges, this number decreases to 18, amounting to approximately 10% of all active judges serving on U.S. Courts of Appeals. Federal District Courts. There are only 113 sitting African American judges serving on federal district courts, comprising just 10.8% of all sitting district court judges. Among active district court judges, this number decreases to 80, amounting to approximately 13.8% of all active U.S. district court judges. U.S. Supreme Court. There is only one African American currently serving on the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Clarence Thomas. The first African American Supreme Court Justice, Justice Thurgood Marshall, was not appointed until 1967. Justices Thomas and Marshall are the only 2 African Americans to have sat on the Supreme Court since the nation's founding. 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. There are no African American judges on the 7th Circuit, which includes Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin. Despite the fact that blacks or African Americans make up more than 11% of the jurisdiction's population. Presidential appointees. As of August 2019, President Donald Trump had only appointed 5 African American judges, though he did appoint a 6th in September. To date, African Americans comprise just 4% of Trump's judicial appointees. In comparison, 17.9% of former President Barack Obama's appointees were African American. Trump has not appointed a single African American judge to a U.S. Court of Appeals. African Americans are underrepresented on federal courts compared with their share of the U.S. population. President Trump has failed to prioritize appointing African American judges. Diversity adds immense value to the judiciary. For parties to a case and the public at large, the court's legitimacy is strengthened when many of the decision makers look like or share similar characteristics to them. However, while previous presidential administrations have made concerted efforts to diversify the bench, President Trump has nominated and appointed the least racially and ethnically diverse group of federal judges since the 1980s. CAP's report on this lack of judicial diversity argues for a variety of reforms that will not only reverse this trend, but also transform today's whitewashed judiciary into one that reflects the viewpoint and experiences of the populace it serves.